Hey you guys, look what I'm doing to my hair. I kind of have this sort of weird side braid thing going on, kind of this sort of old lady Pippi Longstocking kind of deal. I don't know, I was feeling, I don't know what I was feeling tonight. I was missing y'all though. Watching videos and commenting to everybody's stuff. It was nice. However, this is a VR to TheMagicalCatLady. I think that's how I say it, TheMagicalCatLady. Yes, TheMagicalCatLady. And her video entitled Ignorance on Facebook. And she was talking primarily about when we find that we disagree with our friends, or you know, our Facebook friends, which kind of qualifies a lot of people as acquaintances, but anyhow, when we find all of a sudden that we have offended somebody with our position on something, or they have offended us, but she was talking about more from the position of when we find out, oh gosh, we've pissed somebody off, they've unfriended us, or they've you know, made a comment about how we shouldn't think that, we should think this other way. And it pretty much specific to the whole idea, the whole realm of religion. And she was sharing something along the lines of, I believe she was talking about gay marriage and or gay rights in one way or another. And a friend of hers came on and said something to the effect of, well, you know, the Bible says, you know, ellipsis, and, you know, went on from there. That is an interesting topic because it touches on freedom of speech. It touches on America, because we're both Americans, and I'm sure she's talking about Americans, and the idea of how closely we hold our right to freedom of thought and freedom of expression. You know, with freedom comes a whole lot of not just responsibility, but reciprocal responsibility. In other words, if I get to stand up here on YouTube and say how I feel about gay marriage, then you have a right to go on YouTube and say I'm full of shit. That's your right. You don't have the right to slander me or libel me under the legal description of what those two things are. But you can certainly have an opinion about me, and you can say that opinion. If it's something like saying that I'm a prostitute, or that I have a venereal disease, or that I am malfeasant in my business or something, you don't have the right to say those things unless they are true and you can prove it. But you sure can say I'm full of shit, or that I'm a Satanist, or that I'm going to go to hell because I don't believe in the Bible, or I am going to go to hell because I'm not you know, I don't follow the tenets of you know, your religion. So what that calls for, because that's true, what that calls for is a real sense of self, and of, you have to know who you are, you have to be willing to defend your position, even if that defense is nothing but silence, which is often what's required in a situation like that, when you're being attacked for, you know, not being Christian in a Christian nation. And that's a whole nother topic, whether or not we are a Christian nation or not. So YouTube particularly, I mean Facebook to a certain degree, but YouTube particularly quickly calls you to think about what it is you believe, to be able to meet opposition in a way that feels like it has integrity for you. I tend to be I tend to lay all the ground rules first, say what I'm all about, and somehow that protects me in a way from being attacked too much, except for by haters. And in part it's because of what I believe, which is this: everybody has a right to their opinion. You have a right to say that you think I'm going to hell because I don't know, believe in gay marriage or something. That's okay. You can say that. Once said, though, we really need to move on to other topics, because we will get into this feedback loop of arguing the unknown and unknowable in the state. I mean, in the state of being, you know, of living on this earth. We can't know it all. Who's going to hell, if there's a hell, and why they might be going there. All we can do is rely on our faith. And faith is something that you walk up to with your eyes closed, and you put your arms around it and you hold on to it even though you don't know what it really looks like. That's what faith is all about. My mother told me something that I have carried with me all these years. She told this to me when I was a child, and it was probably the best piece of advice or wisdom I've gotten from anybody ever, and that is this. Cheryl, she says, the most dangerous person in this world is a true believer. Of course, I didn't know what that meant when I was 8, but as the years went on, I really started to understand what that means. True believers will stop at nothing to sway you to their side, to persuade you to adopt their mindset on something. True believers include most Christians, not, and they're on a spectrum, all the way from, you know, the real proselytizing Christians, like let's say the Jehovah's Witness as a general rule. Proselytizing is a very, very important part of their faith. They are called to go out and knock on doors and hand out magazines and try to win people to their group. They are called to do that, and they believe in their hearts and souls that that is what God wants them to do, and therefore they must do it. Okay. On the other end of the spectrum, you have, like, I don't know, like Mennonites. Mennonites are so pacifistic and so laid back that you're not, I mean, I don't think I've ever gotten any sort of a proselytizing vibe from Mennonites, and I went to a Mennonite college, so I would know. So you've got that spectrum in Christianity. You also have that spectrum in the Muslim world as well. Everything from, you know, suicide bombers to, you know, your seatmate at your work who, you know, sits right next to you, and you guys hang out and go for walks and, you know, have lunch and talk about your kids, and she happens to be Muslim and you happen to be, I don't know, atheist, let's say, and it's all cool. You're not afraid she's going to bomb you, and she's not afraid you're going to try to make her be a Jehovah's Witness. So those two religions primarily are heavy on the proselytization, and that is what you were getting. You were getting a Christian who was witnessing to you because she believed, or he believed in his heart, that you are going to hell if you don't adopt, you know, their way of thought. So how do you handle that kind of stuff when it happens? I think we all handle it differently. I have developed a very thick skin and an even way of putting that to rest in my mind. Even as by that, what I'm saying is I have consciously taught myself not to react emotionally when I get that kind of a comment. You can't win in an argument with a true believer, so why waste your breath? I mean, unless you're just kind of having fun or gaslighting them, or, you know, poking them in their most hurty emotional places, and that's something that's kind of evil to do that. But if that's your trip, whatever. If that's what you're doing, well, it doesn't matter that you're not going to win the argument. But if you really are trying to communicate with someone, and you know it's a true believer that you're trying to communicate with, sometimes the best thing to do is back off, change the subject. You know, ask how their kid's doing in school, or, you know, do you like the new dog park, or whatever. Just change the subject, particularly if it's a person that for one reason or another you want to keep in your life. That's how I do it, because I am not bellicose. I am not a fighter and a I don't hoist my petard at very many ideas. I really don't. Because somehow, in my heart of hearts, the thing I am a true believer about is everyone's right to express themselves and their beliefs without fear. Everyone's right to disagree with one another while not stepping on the other guy's rights, you know, their inalienable rights, or their civil rights, or the rights inferred upon them by their county, state, or city, or country. Whatever that universe of rights is, that just by definition can't be violated. In order for us all to exercise our right to freedom of thought and freedom of speech and freedom of belief. So, there you go. I think it's interesting that this country, it was first settled primarily by religious dissidents, outcasts and weirdos, criminals got sent over here in droves from England. Kind of the cast-offs of the British Isles. Of course, other countries were in here too, but we're going to talk about the 13 original colonies. Very quickly on the heels of that, and concurrent with that, came over a lot of second sons of nobility, guys who they weren't going to inherit the family farm. They had to do something, so they came over with a chip on their shoulder to begin with, because they weren't getting the manor house and all its chattel. Instead, they were going off to this godforsaken place all the way across the ocean to try to eke out a living as a landowner. So those were the guys who framed the Constitution and who engaged in this, what Thomas Jefferson called this grand experiment. I think it was Thomas Jefferson. I'd have to go back and research it, but one of those guys, I think it was Thomas Jefferson, called a grand experiment. And that grand experiment was a democratic republic, which in a way is almost oxymoronic when you really think about those words. So here we all are, you know, 300 years later, however many it is, and we're still slugging it out, trying to keep the whole thing afloat. And you know, God bless us, we haven't been around for very long. Who knows how much longer this thing is going to sustain itself. We seem to be losing freedoms quickly, and we seem to be constrained more and more by policies and rules and laws. My mom's phrase was, you know, like I said, the most dangerous person in this world is a true believer. My favorite quote that I came up with is this. There are the five most dangerous words in the English language, when strung together, are, there ought to be a law. When you start constraining things with law because, you know, your neighbor's cow came onto your pasture, or because you don't want to have to use the same drinking fountain as the colored people, or because you, somebody's kid got hit by a bus, so now everybody has to stop right around the curve on a mountain road, where now you're having rear-end accidents because no one knows those cars have stopped. Okay, when you start passing laws for every little thing that happens, pretty soon you are in the biggest clusterfuck of your life. And I think that's part of what's going on in our country, is just real, what do you call that, a Gorgon's knot, I think it is. So anyway, yeah, again, ramble. But yeah, my thing is just, you gotta be like that little lizard who runs through the desert. And that little bastard's running through the desert, and pretty soon a hawk spots him, and hawk flaps down and grabs his tail with his big old talons, and boom, that lizard can break the tail off and keep running and escape being picked up by the hawk. Well, I think on Facebook we have to do the same thing. We have to be like that little lizard and let our tails drop. Let our deeply held belief, our anger, our this isn't fair mentality, drop it and keep running. Because my other favorite quote is always deal from a position of strength. And if you stop and turn around and start arguing with the hawk that has your tail, chances are you're going to lose. So that's how I feel. Come on back and tell me all the places I'm wrong or right. And have a great day, evening, all that. Love you guys. Bye.